Have you ever thought about what goes on behind the scenes to get information quickly from one place to another? Accurate, reliable information that has not been distorted or intentionally altered or simply lost somehow on its journey is so important, isn't it? My name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think. Isn't it interesting how film, and actually media of all kinds, has influenced the way we think? In Britain, in the 1930s, a group of filmmakers made a series of documentaries that were designed to influence and educate the viewers. I believe the specific mandate was to give the audience an understanding of democratic society. I suppose you might call these productions a form of propaganda even. I'll show my age here, I expect, but there used to be a newsreel cinema at Victoria Railway Station in London. Now, while it's long gone, I have fond memories of this rather tatty place. You could sit in there and watch the news and then perhaps a cartoon or two before settling down to watch one of these short documentaries, and then you go outside and catch a train. As a boy, one of the things that first got me hooked on trains was a poem, and it had been written in 1936 called Night Mail. The documentary that goes with this poem fascinated me. I can remember almost every scene all these years later. I love poetry, and poetry was integrated into that lovely documentary beautifully. Most of the books there on the shelf behind me are poetry books of one sort or another, and every now and again I scribble a verse or two just for the love of playing with words. Sometimes, just by the way they are written, poems can capture the cadence of whatever is going on in a very clever way. Let me give you an example from a poem called From a Railway Carriage, that was written by the famous Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, even if you didn't know the title, you could easily get the idea you were on a train just from the cadence of the poem. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadows, the horses and cattle. Do you hear the train speeding up and slowing down? Do you see how it works? Now, a few years later, Night Mail was written, and it too uses those same tricks to communicate its message in several ways all at once. The Night Mail was a train, well, several trains in fact, that hid a clever secret. Despite looking like a brightly painted freight train, there were dozens of men working inside these trains as they sped along through the night. The men, who included both my grandfather and my uncle, worked through the night sorting letters in these mobile sorting offices. I told you you'd never guess what the train was my grandfather worked on, didn't I? The travelling post office. Now, the documentary that hooked me all those years ago shows the way the train rushes along, collecting bags of mail without stopping and delivering sorted sacks of letters to similar points along its route without even slowing down. There were huge nets that were swung out from the side of the train that scooped up sacks of mail, and there were chutes that shot them out at their destination, all without stopping and doing it at quite high speed. Apparently speed was of the essence. This is the night mail crossing the border, bringing the check and the postal order. Do you see how it works? The cadence. Letters for the rich, letters for the poor, the shop at the corner, the girl next door. It's clever, isn't it? The way the words rhyme and the cadence and rhythm communicates Last week I'd been impatiently waiting for computer chips to arrive in the mail. Now the irony of the clash between the old and the new technologies wasn't lost on me at all. My grandfather worked as a postal worker at Mount Pleasant sorting office in London, and he was there for quite a while. There, until quite recently even, there used to be a special underground railway system for transporting letters across London. What fun! It's now part of the Postal Museum, and it's well worth a visit if you're ever in the area. Recently, of course, most communications has moved from paper and letters and stamps to email, text and messages and everything instant. But letters and messengers hand-carrying them go back thousands of years. Nehemiah famously got letters written by the king to hand-deliver along his journey as he went about rebuilding the war-torn city walls around Jerusalem. If it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the provinces west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories. It all sounds a little sketchy to me. One brave person trying to rebuild a devastated city right under the noses of his enemies. Can you imagine how fragile that system must have been? I mean, what if he lost the letters on the way to where he was going? What if they fell out of his bag? I slipped out during the night, taking only a few others with me. I had not told anyone about the plans God had put in my heart. That could be a line from a spy story or something, couldn't it? It's truly amazing how fragile key communication has been over the centuries, isn't it? These days, with our instant everything mentality, things are just as fragile, but perhaps more because of having to sort through the mounds of partial information that's just wrong, rather than not getting information at all. I stumbled onto this lovely quote from the book of Proverbs, and I thought it was very appropriate to so much of what is going on around us today, with all of the communication issues we have. Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. That's lovely, isn't it? I found myself wishing that quote were being applied to a lot lately. But throughout history, key and important messages have been carried by the most unlikely of people. Look at this one, for example. A man roaming around in the desert, wearing animal skins and eating locusts and honey. I mean, would you listen to him? God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light that everyone might believe because of his testimony. Now, John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. Not only was John the Baptist a somewhat unlikely messenger, he carried the most important message of all time. It's quite an example of a frail communication link, isn't it? Right through history, amazingly simple ways of communication have sometimes won out over the very high-tech alternatives. Using such simple and yet vulnerable methods, the importance of the message communicated has sometimes been so vital that you'd wonder how the course of history would have changed if the letter or telegram or whatever hadn't got where it was supposed to go. Certainly, with the story of Jesus and the record of his life, it seems to have been carried to us by some very tenuous paths, and those have often seemed highly unlikely to succeed. Now, the importance of communicating that core message, love God, love people, and understanding that greatness begins when you serve and protect the weakest members of society, puts a very different slant on greatness, doesn't it? I wish I'd known at the time about my grandfather's adventures. I wonder what was the most important letter he ever carried. Perhaps it wasn't just letters for the rich, letters for the poor, the shop at the corner, the girl next door. Until next time, goodbye.